if it happens this time. And I saw Lex interview Tucker, or Tucker. It looks like they're at Tucker's place. I recognize that wood anywhere. Um, and since there's been so little good content on YouTube lately, I don't know. I figured I'd watch it, and anyone who wants to join can. Um, and I'm trying to accomplish a few things in Pal World still. Trying to breed my perfect mounts, and I'll just let the interview play when there's not a whole lot going on. Um, but yeah, no, it's been crazy lately. I saw earlier this morning. I saw a video from the mayor of New York talking about the situation where Texas has been sending illegal immigrants up there. They've been buying them plane tickets and bus tickets and then just sending them to Democrat cities, which I think is hilarious. Um, and the New York mayor is responding by trying to fine or threatening fines to bus drivers unless they follow the strict criteria of where and when they can drop off these illegals. Which I think is just a cop out, right? Like they want to act like they're not. Clearly, they've had enough, right? Like that's more or less what they're saying by responding and narrowing the window in which this can happen. Um, which is like a normal response, right? To be like, wow, all these people are just showing up, and we have to deal with them. So let's just, instead of getting mad at the people, let's get mad at Texas because they had enough. So they decided, since the federal government wanted to prevent them from securing their own border, let's send these folks to these tolerant and inclusive liberal cities and see if how they like just thousands upon thousands of people just showing up and having to deal with it. Um, it didn't take very long for New York to get overwhelmed, right? So if New York got overwhelmed so quickly, um, and it's trying to narrow and minimize the amount of people coming in, how do they think border states feel? Uh, who are getting way more people and don't have the ability to take to create their own solutions. And a lot of people will I mean, I understand that it's most people like to think of it as the humane thing to do, but when there's so many people living an inhumane existence already, it really I don't think the motive is I don't think the motive is totally virtuous. I don't think the reason that this is being allowed is simply a virtuous reason. Clearly, there's a political reason that the borders have been allowed to stay open, and it's key bono is always what you have to ask yourself is who benefits. Um, in some states, they've began issuing driver's license, and there's been talk of programs to and once people are here, they almost never go back, right? It's like in entitlement programs, right? They never shrink, they only ever grow. So the people who want a large influx of new voters they know that all they have to do is get them here, and it becomes like a difficult process with bad optics to essentially do what needs to be done and enforce the law, right? Like I think the only solution, right, would be boats, cruise ships, planes, trains, whatever it takes, right? Reset the system and start from the beginning the right way through the port of entry, with a limit, with a severe limit. And this is, for me, it's I'm more concerned about me and my community and my fellow citizens and my family and my children and my children's children. Their well-being is more my concern than people who in some way, like, just how we're letting this country get worse by sitting idly by because there's so many stupid people who vote against their own best interest. Because we're allowing this country to go to shit, right? We're having to deal with the repercussions of it, right? We don't have a better country we can flee to. All the better countries out there, the countries with the coveted, universal health care, they wouldn't allow us in, and not in the same numbers that people enter this country. So at this point, we have to defend, in any way we can, our way of life and the way of life that we'd like to live. This and this is just one of the problems. Eric Weinstein, there's a crazy clip of Eric Weinstein on the Joe Rogan show talking about theories as to why it's being allowed, right? And he mentioned that there's been this conspiracy theory going way back that and it goes along with like the militarization of police, right? Police and Homeland Security and any new like law enforcement body that the government creates has been increasingly more militarized, right? And any video I see of people interacting with the police online lately, the police are just completely out of control, man. And I used to really like just blindly support police officers, right? Like you have to resist the urge to have a knee-jerk reaction just because you perceive yourself as on one side versus the other. A lot of people will instantaneously take the side that their party is aligned with, and for a long time that meant backing the blue, right, if you're a right winger. But I've seen just too much overreach and excessive force and abuse and just a complete disregard of people's rights on the part of the police, and they've lost a lot of support, at least from me, right? And I'm sure anyone with eyes who's paying attention is getting the same feeling. And all it'll take is an interaction, like these people who blindly support any police officer, any law enforcement, and any time there's like an incident. Once that they or someone they love have a negative interaction, they'll change. Like they'll realize real quick that there's been like a culture of abuse on the part of law enforcement, right? And I remember talking to people and saying that essentially the reason that these guys go apeshit whenever people resist is because once you can tell a cop to go fuck himself, right? Essentially, like, law doesn't exist. It's like a police officer is like a personal embodiment of like law and order, essentially. And at the point where their authority gets questioned, they're in a crisis, essentially, a crisis of authority, right? Because even when they're acting unlawfully, right, as soon as people start to resist, it basically it invalidates like the institutional power that they have, right? So they have to like overreact with force and abuses of your rights, because if they are ever allowed to be backed down by the citizenry, even when they're wrong, then it sort of it invalidates like the perception of like law and order, right? The problem is that these guys are wedging themselves into interactions with the populace, where it didn't need to be escalated to like a law enforcement. A lot of the ones I'm seeing are like civil right. They're audits, essentially. There's these people who go out with cameras to public places, or people who practice their Second Amendment rights, and they're set upon by police officers, right? And these police officers will disregard their rights, and they have these tools that they've been given, like a reasonable suspicion. Probable cause became reasonable suspicion, which is a lot more broad in its scope. Disturbing the peace, interfering with an investigation. You can't even stand by and document their abuse of other people, or you'll be considered disrupting an investigation. They'll give you unlawful commands, like not to touch your phone, to put away your phone, not to record them. And then they'll even like destroy evidence that they're not that they don't like. They'll take people's phones and delete videos and stuff like that. Like, they're just totally out of control. And a lot of this comes from the fact that and it's really sad to see, man, because like in a lot of ways crime is being allowed to run rampant in other areas. Like, you'll see cities where people will just like walk in and loot stores, but on the other hand, they won't. They'll throw like 10 officers and a lot of physicality at some random guy during a traffic stop, right? But they're not stopping people who are unlawfully entering the country, or people who are actually making it unsafe for the public. And it's the same with like gun control laws. Like any new anytime there's like a mass casualty event, I instantly assume that this is just a way to further gun control laws. It's the conspiracy theorist in me. I have a natural suspicion to anything, and I just assume that a lot of these mass casualty events, or especially like things that you're not allowed to talk about or have no coverage, they're just and a lot of times it's the right to buy and own guns that's villainized. When in reality, the people who are breaking laws and hurting people were not going to follow gun laws to begin with. And it's not like other countries where it's been that way for so long that there just isn't. There's more guns than people in America, so the cat's out of the bag. And once you make it like illegal, all you're doing is making people who want to follow the law defenseless. And that's like that's a criminal's dream, is to not have to worry about your victim being able to defend themselves. It makes us all more desirable targets. So I'm instantly suspicious anytime there's a new mass shooting or anything like that. I'm like, oh god, here comes the gun control laws. And I think a lot of times that sometimes these people, what they don't talk about is what kind of medications are these people on. Why is it so desirable to perform these like people? There's like a crisis of hopelessness, right? And it's all systematic, and we're really soul sick here, and things aren't going to get better like on a macro level until we start to get better ourselves, right? We've lived too long with tolerance and tolerance, acceptance, and inclusivity being our highest virtues. So until we get better as people, it's gonna be like a situation where we're all just gonna be like wishing ill upon each other, and we're just gonna watch the society decay around us. And there's not enough people with strong convictions to change anything. But in the meantime, I'll just watch this video.
Depending on the questions you ask Putin, you could be arrested or not. And I said, listen to what you're saying. You're saying the U.S. government has like control over my questions and they'll arrest me if I ask the wrong question? Like, how are we better than Putin if that's true? Killing Navalny during the Munich Security Conference in the middle of a debate over $60 billion in Ukraine funding? Maybe the Russians are dumb. I didn't get that vibe at all. I don't think we kill people in other countries to affect election outcomes. Oh, wait. No, we do it a lot and have for 80 years.
The following is a conversation with Tucker Carlson.
Oh no, it crashed immediately.
A highly influential and often controversial political commentator.
Oh my god.
When he was at Fox, Time magazine called him the most powerful conservative in America. After Fox, he has continued to host big, impactful interviews and shows on X, on the Tucker Carlson podcast, and on TuckerCarlson.com.
Yeah, Tucker's the freaking man, dude. Like, he's sort of like this, he was kind of like, back when he was on that show with that other guy, he used to wear like a bow tie, and he was on a show with like another guy on MSNBC, I think. And I always thought he was like a joke because he's like a very impish, kind of like, he's a very like he laughs a lot, and he has curly hair. He just looks kind of like clowny, but he really has tapped into like saying what everyone's thinking. Like he rails against AI because he thinks that it's gonna hurt jobs, which is already a crisis, right? Well, there's already been tons of automation of labor, and and as you'd like automate labor and things go towards AI, you almost have to have like this is why like I consider myself a reactionary, because to be dogmatically like one way or the other makes you stubborn and ignorant. What the fuck is going on? Why is Pal World crashing on startup? This makes no sense to me. Oh man, this is a fucking bummer. But yeah, as things become more automated, we have to socialize, right? Otherwise, the unemployment will become a crisis, and there'll be nothing for millions of people to do. Um, Please don't crash. You need labor. It's gonna crash. You need labor. You need jobs. People need jobs, or you have to have a collectivist response, right? And it would make more sense if collectivism only works when the community feels like a connection to each other, and they share a common culture and common values. Because I feel like people, especially like capitalists, wouldn't be so resistant to collectivism if they didn't think that the money was going to people who they don't support the money going to, right? This is why I think like identity, national identity, stuff like that's really important. Because without a I think just people would be more willing to embrace some collectivism if they liked who the money was going to, if they supported who the money was going to. And since they don't, all they're gonna do is resist it. Come here. Look at how their legs flop when you carry them. Look at the legs just flop around. Yeah, I just always thought, right? Like for instance, if you're like a big net taxpayer, if you got to choose who your taxes went to, for like dependency programs, that you might be more inclined to do it, right? Like if you were gonna pay a lot in taxes, right? For, let's just say, like $1 million, because you're a rich guy, but you got to sit and look through a portfolio of like needy families, and we're like, oh man, so I gotta pay this money anyway, and I really hate, taxes, and I don't like the government in my business, but I like the look of this family, and they're trying to make it. I'm okay with my money going to them. That it might be more something that people are more willing to accept, and that's like a really, that's really implausible. But it's sort of like people who get charity from churches, right? People will donate to the church, and the people who end up ultimately receiving a lot of the money are also members of that community, members of that particular church, right? And if everyone like paid their tithing, and if the money went to needy people, and then we wouldn't even need like a social safety net. The problem is that our communities we're atomized as people, and so we have like this we don't see ourselves as part of a community, and we don't have any desire to help the people in our community. That we could change that, if I think law and order has a lot to do with it. There has to be the perception that everything's under control. There also needs to be a perception that that the government is doing what they're supposed to do, right? If everyone strongly believed that it was necessary, and that it was going to the right people, and that it wasn't just out of control, corruption, that there might be more of a willingness to contribute. Also, I've always thought that these dependency programs, they need a entire division dedicated to making sure that the people receiving entitlement programs also are. I got a Swift and a Swift boy and a runner girl. They're gonna get mated next. And then I need a nimble one too. If I can get Legend, Swift, Runner, and Nimble on one, that would be super fast. But first, the Fangalope, right? I got Anubis with me to craft. I got Toko Toko with me because he's got that egg cannon. Tansy's got the Draco. And then these two are my whips. Gotta whip the Jet Dragon, and you gotta whip the Fangalope. And I want to catch more legendaries with good traits. Like, let's go see if we can get like an Artisan Anubis. An Artisan Anubis would be pretty dope.
I recommend subscribing, even if you disagree with his views. It is always good to explore a diversity of perspectives. Most recently, he interviewed the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. We discussed this, the topic of Russia, Putin, Navalny, and the war in Ukraine at length in this conversation.
Thank God for
Please
the
allow me to
analyzer
say a few words
that it stopped
about
crashing.
the very fact that I did this interview. I have received a lot of criticism, publicly and privately, when I announced that I will be talking with Tucker. For people
Yeah, this is another big problem, right? Is the sort of like people think that you shouldn't have discourse with people that they disagree with. And this is all coming from one side, right? The left is so goddamn afraid of letting what would be called dissidents? Because essentially that's all we are. We're dissidents, right? If you were like a milquetoast Republican, if you weren't like nationalistic or too radical, then they would have no problem with you being platformed, right? I mean, I think even still there would be like calls to censor like any right-wing voice, but not from your own side, right? As long as you don't as long as you support like on the right wing, right? What can get you like censored is not supporting Israel. That's a big one. If you don't support Israel on the right wing, then that's one of the things that'll get you like because there's like this. It's not a secret that Christians make up a lot of the right wing, and Christians have this sort of like death pact with Israel. I mean, if I understand theology correctly, we need them in Israel for the second coming and the apocalypse, right? So, and I think it says in the Bible that like to treat Israel well, or like, you know, just to have reverence for these people. A lot of Christians will blindly support anything to do with Israel because they feel like it's their duty as a Christian, right? And that's the one thing on the right wing that can get you like alienated from your party. And even Tucker, right? Tucker has gotten into some he's gotten some animosity from Ben Shapiro, because I just as a rule, or in general, he is no longer supporting wars of any kind. Which I think it goes to like his libertarian roots, right? But a libertarian wouldn't be anti-AI. This is why it's better to be a reactionary, because you can change with the world. But the But the libertarian in Tucker is the reason that he wouldn't want to support war of any kind, right? And I think that there's just this sort of like America's been at war since 9/11 consistently in the Middle East, and there's just this exhaustion towards it, especially because people know how much money it cost to have a war, and people they believe that there's way better uses for this money, and there's got to be way better uses of this money than state sanctioned murder, you know. And I think it was easier to convince people back in the day that it's in our own best interest, these wars in the Middle East. Oh, where's Anubis? I'm gonna steal your treasure chest, Anubis. I haven't fought him in so long, there's no reason for him not to spawn. There he is. He's got 3 passive skills, so I don't have 10 Anubises yet, so it's not gonna let me see what's so great about him. Oh, no you don't. Alright, screw it. This was a tough fight. I remember this being a tough fight, because when I was playing, I was trying to do stuff that was a little higher than my level, just to keep everything challenging and exciting. And Anubis was definitely a tough fight. Oh! Forget what I just said. Alright, chill. We got it. Bottomless stomach. I only have 5 Anubises. I think I can fix a lot of that right now. I'm pretty sure that I've got some Anubis eggs sitting at another base. And all I need to do is incubate them. Who's in the cage? I like to find jolt hogs in the cages. What is this? A flambell? A cat? I've got tons of cats. I'm sorry, bro. But yeah, it's you only really see this happen to like Tucker Carlson and like Alex Jones, where people say like you're not even allowed to have conversations with these people. Like, how could you platform? How could you platform so and so? We don't like free speech. It's dangerous. Yeah, I also saw like I can't remember what it's called. There's a new Star Wars show coming, right? And they're just doubling down on like their F George Lucas. We don't care about the fans. You know, this show is a vehicle to address things going on in our world today, because that's what people want, right? They want preachy woke ass shows, because that's going so well for Disney. Like, I was watching this. I don't watch. Me and my wife don't watch a lot of the same stuff. She likes to watch a lot of stuff on Netflix, and I'm more of like an internet guy anyway. But she was watching this thing. It was about this Chinese or this Asian martial artist. I don't want to assume he's Chinese. But it really struck me because the white people in the show were like over the top, cartoonishly evil, and I was like, I just can't watch this shit anymore, man. Like, it's become like ridiculous, the the hyperbolicness of it. Like, why does in every historical show, why do the whites have to be like mustache twirling, cartoonishly evil, right? And then she even said like, well, I guess we were bad back in the day. And I was like, yeah, and nobody else was, right? We were the only ones doing anything bad, and everyone else was like living in peace and harmony until we came along with our bullshit. You have to be like insanely naive to believe something like that. I thought my eggs were here. I was gonna build like a back patio up here. There's not really a whole lot to look at. Effigy. Man, once I get that runner in there with the nimble and then the swift, this thing's really gonna haul ass. I really like these dinosaurs, man. I like the way they look. Oh, it's getting cold. Yeah, go to sleep right there, big dog. You guys just sleep wherever. But, yeah, we'll just have to see what happens. I guess I could breed my jet dragons here. Do I have any cake in the box? No eggs in the incu, no cake in the box. Alright, let's get the jet dragons breeding. This is the runner. This is the swift. Can I not pick them up while they're sleeping? I guess I should just come back in the day and take care of it. Big fat asses laying all over the PAL box. I need to grab some cake anyway. I forgot I had 2 breeding pins with which to work with. It was really hard to make room for that other one, but I don't know, all the running around wasn't with all that. Okay, so let's take these cakes. I'm gonna put some of them in here. Oh, we got an egg already. Okay. What are the odds that we nail it with the first egg? Only 2 minutes on that egg. And shift, shift. Put 3 more here. Shift. There's 2. And that's 10. By the time I get back, the cake box, the egg will be ready to hatch. But I also got some other eggs I need to hatch. Not here, in here. I should have large rocky eggs somewhere, and I don't know where they are. I had a bunch of Anubis eggs that I accidentally made. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe it's these huge dark eggs. Maybe I made... it was Frostallion knocked. I made too many of them. I can't believe I only have, like... what, like 5 Anubises? Especially considering how easy they are to breed. I should have way more than that. No, that's not what I meant to do. Okay, bones, soul, wood. Precious entrails go in here. Might as well eat the bread. Everyone else should be eating the honey out of the feed bag. We'll just see. I haven't been up here in a while. It'll be a good way to kill some time and wait for day. There should be like lots of wood here, lots of ore. There always is a lot of ore here. These guys are not great at picking up after themselves. 275, 325, 706 coal. That's great. So much wood. I bet they're constantly deforesting this area. So what we'll do is we'll over encumber ourselves and then I like the way Warsect looks. Eventually, I'm gonna breed some perfect pals, a lot of them. Let me let this play.
Who think I shouldn't do the conversation with Tucker, or generally think that there are certain people I should never talk to. I'm sorry, but I disagree.
Yeah, it's silly.
I will talk to everyone, as long as they're willing to talk genuinely in long form for 2, 3, 4 more hours.
Yeah, Joe Rogan used to do this too. He used to be really good about platforming people that he might like. I mean, it's now Sargon seems really cringe. But back in the day, man, Sargon was one of our boys. You know, during the great meme wars of the 2016s. People forget, they don't put respect on Sargon's name, but he was one of the original anti-SJWs. You know, back when things were less serious. A lot of these guys aren't even around anymore. But yeah, the fact that we got Sargon on, even if he did come off as a whiner, right? Because Joe's not from like the internet world. He doesn't understand how serious the calls for deplatforming can be. I think he might be a little bit more sympathetic now that he's gone through it himself a little bit. But yeah, I don't think he realizes how much the other side would rather just make it where we can't talk at all. If it was up to them, they would be perfectly happy with us losing our entire freedom of speech. Twitter's really based now, man. If you're following the right people on Twitter, it's gotten really based lately. Some of it's crazy, man. People are just straight up welling videos and posting crime statistics and looting videos and random acts of violence, and it's gotten really it's gotten a lot cooler to be on Twitter. But a lot of for a long time, man, these platforms were really unfriendly to anyone who wasn't like a total I want to say fag, but I'm sure that's not the best language. I meant like in the way where it means lame and cucked, not like literal homosexuality. But basically, you had to be like it was only friendly to like boomers and weirdos, Z's and Zers and furries, and like you could be as weird and degenerate as you wanted to be, but you couldn't say like, "Hey, I don't love what they're teaching our kids in school." Swift runner. That's too much. Alright, y'all can keep doing it. Y'all can keep smashing.
I will talk to Putin and to Zelensky, to Trump and to Biden, to Tucker and to Jon Stewart, AOC, Obama, and many more people with very different views on the world. I want to understand people and ideas. That's what long-form conversations are supposed to be all about. Now, for people who criticize me for not asking tough questions, I hear you. But again, I disagree. I do often ask tough questions, but I try to do it in a way that doesn't shut down.
Yeah, Lex was really hard on Kanye, right? Like I don't think anyone really stopped and heard Kanye out. He had a lot of grievances with specific people, but he was also had grievances with like Jewish methodology. The Owen Benjamin talks about this a lot, right? Like he the way he describes it is like they see a win-win as a lose, right? Like they only feel good whenever like the other person's getting screwed over, and it's really like he's being hyperbolic, right? But there is a lot of smoke to this fire. It 102 countries can't be wrong. That's all I'm going to say about it.
On the other person, putting them into a defensive state where they give only shallow talking points. Instead, I'm looking always for the expression of genuinely held ideas and the deep roots of those ideas. When done well, this gives us a chance to really hear out the guest and to begin to understand what and how they think. And I trust the intelligence of you, the listener, to make up your own mind, to see through the bullshit, to the degree there's bullshit, and to see to the heart of the person. Sometimes I fail at this, but I'll continue working my ass off to improve. All that said, I find that this no tough questions criticism often happens when the guest is a person the listener simply hates and wants to see them grilled into embarrassment, called a liar, a greedy egomaniac, a killer, maybe even an evil human being.
Yeah, see, that's what they really want, right? That's like, and you only ever see it happen to our guys, where they have these super confrontational interviews, and it's just not productive at all. Like, this was like anytime Trump would be interviewed by anybody on their side, it would just be like accusations, and they would treat him like shit, right? And it's like, is it any wonder people think that we love Trump, right? Or that it's like a cult of personality? It's a troll. All Trump support is a troll. It's anti-establishment trolling. We don't vote for Trump. We vote against the establishment, and it's all just because we recognize like the media establishment as these like self-righteous frauds. So any time that we support Trump, it's to basically infuriate the opposition. We're trying to make sure that the opposition knows that we don't care. We don't care what the news says. That they can't tell us who we should and shouldn't support. We know they're liars. We don't like them. And if that means we have to do it again, then we'll do it again. And it looks like we are gonna do it again. I wouldn't be. I would be surprised if Trump won again, just because I think that, like, if you've seen how hard they've been trying to put him in jail ever since he won that election he wasn't supposed to win, you would understand that, like, that these people, they can't accept losing their power. And they will criminalize the duly elected president of the United States to stop it, right? If they couldn't do it with media control, that's what they were counting on in 2016, right? They were counting on media control to be sufficient. And if they couldn't do it with media control, then they'll do it with electronic voting machines. They'll do it with mail-in ballots. They'll do it with illegals. They'll do it with computer hacking. It I honestly think there's no way that it can be done twice. Swift runner. Oh. What? Oh, that's the one I just bred. Okay, where are my dragons at? There they are. This one and this one. And then before they get too distracted, I need to pick them up. Come with me, my dear boy. Yeah, I'm trying to breed super fast. Super fast jet dragons. He's already pretty fast. As you can see, I can't catch his ass. Where the fuck is he? Bro, am I gonna need a jet dragon just to catch you? Stop moving. Got you. Got your ass. Look at that twitchy motherfucker in that pin. But yeah, honestly, I don't think he can win again. Yep, 10 cakes. Get busy. Get busy. Okay, I think I still need a nimble jet dragon. And I gotta wait on Anubis to respawn. I don't think jet dragon's even back yet.
And so on. If you are such a listener, what you want is drama, not wisdom.
Ooh.
In this case, this show is not for you. There are many shows you can go to for that, with hosts that are way more charismatic and entertaining than I'll ever be.
Yeah, Lex is boring, honestly.
If you do stick around,
I'm watching it
please
for
know
Tucker.
I will work hard to do this well.
Yeah, I only really am watching this because the people he interviews, right? Which says a lot, man. Good on him for taking the chance. But he is kind of a dud personality-wise. And I really don't love the way that Kanye was treated when he was on here. But you know, I don't know. I don't know why I paused just to talk shit about Lex. He's doing his thing. That's what we're all doing. We're all just doing our thing. And I am gonna support him and continue to support him. But you know, he's a little monotone. He's kind of a hard listen. But I probably am as well. To be fair.
And to keep improving. Thank you for your patience.
That's all we can do.
And thank
man.
you for your support.
You got
I
it,
love
buddy.
you all.
I love you too.
This is the Lex Friedman Podcast. To support it, please
No
check out
homo.
our sponsors in the description. And now, dear friends, here's Tucker Carlson.
No homo, bromo.
What was your first impression when you met Vladimir Putin for the interview?
I thought he seemed nervous. And I was very surprised by that. And I thought he seemed like someone who'd overthought it a little bit, who had a plan. And I don't think that's the right way to go into any interview. My strong sense, having done a lot of them for a long time, is that it's better to know what you think, to say, you know, as much as you can, honestly, so you don't get confused by your own lies, and just to be yourself. And I thought that he went into it like an overprepared student, and I kept thinking, why is he nervous? But you know, I guess because he thought a lot of people were going to see it.
But he was also probably
I don't know what Tucker was
prepared
expecting
to,
from Putin.
to give you a full lesson in history, as he did.
Well, I was totally shocked by that and very annoyed because I thought he was filibustering. I thought he would. I mean, I asked him, as I usually do, the most
Where'd Fat Boy go?
obvious, dumbest question ever, which is, you know, why'd you do this? And he had said in a speech that I think is worth reading. I don't speak Russian, so I haven't heard it in the original, but he had said at the moment of the beginning of the war, he had given this address to Russians in which he explained to the fullest extent we have seen so far why he was doing this. And he said in that speech, I fear that NATO, the West, the United States, the Biden administration will preemptively attack us. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I mean, I can't evaluate whether that's a fear rooted in reality or one rooted in paranoia.
He's so big, they're all hitting.
The right there. And so I alluded to that in my question, and rather than answering it, he went off on this long, from my perspective, kind of tiresome, sort of greatest hits.
I knew that was going to miss.
Of Russian history, and
Fireball's too strong.
I thought was, well, Ukraine is ours, or Eastern Ukraine is ours already.
Don't kill it.
And I thought he was doing that to avoid answering the question. So, the last thing you want when you're interviewing someone is to get rolled.
All right, you guys need to
and
leave
I
me
didn't want to be
alone.
rolled, so I, a couple of times, interrupted him politely, I thought, but he wasn't having it. And then I thought, you know what? I'm not here to prove that I'm a great interviewer. It's kind of not about me. I want to know who this guy is. I think a Western audience, a global audience, has a right to know more about the guy, and so just let him talk. Because it's not,
Need
I
four
don't feel
more
like my
before I can,
reputation's on the line.
Analyze
People
it.
have already drawn
Analyze.
conclusions about me, I suppose, to the extent they have. I'm not interested really in those conclusions anyway. So just let him talk. And
I
so
keep forgetting to
calmed down
use
and just let him
Tansy and
talk,
Toko.
in retrospect, I thought that was really, really interesting. Whether you agree with it or not, or whether you think it's relevant to the war in Ukraine or not, that was his answer. And so it's inherently significant.
Well, you said he was nervous. Were you nervous? Were you afraid? This is Vladimir Putin.
Well, I wasn't
He's
afraid
a
at
killer.
all, and I wasn't nervous at all.
Did you drink tea beforehand?
No, I did my normal regimen of nicotine pouches and coffee. No, I'm not a tea drinker. I tried not to eat, all the sweets they put in front of us, which is that is my weakness, is eating crap. But you eat a lot of sugar before, as you know, before an interview, and it does dull you.
I'm looking for
I
Relaxosaurus
successfully resisted
Lux.
that. But I wasn't nervous. I wasn't nervous the whole time I was there. Why would I be?
There he is.
I'm 54. My kids are grown. I believe in God. I'm almost never nervous. But no, I wasn't nervous. I was just interested. I mean, I'm interested in Soviet history. I studied it in college. I've read about it my entire life. My dad, worked in the Cold War. It was a constant topic of conversation. And so to be in the Kremlin in a room where Stalin made decisions, either wartime decisions or decisions about murdering his own population, I just couldn't get over it. We were in Molotov's old office. So for me, I was just blown away by that. I thought I knew a lot about Russia. It turns out I knew a lot about the Soviet period, the 1937 purge trials, the famine in Ukraine. Like I knew
he's
a
fucking
fair
him
amount
up.
about that, but I really knew nothing about contemporary Russia, less than I thought I did, it turned out. And but yeah, I was just blown away by where we were, and that's kind of one of the
I don't
main
want him to hurt
drivers
him
at
too
this
bad.
stage in my life. That's why I do what I do, is because I'm interested in stuff, and I want to see as much as I can and try and draw conclusions from it to the extent I can. So I was very much caught up in that, but no, I wasn't nervous. I didn't think he was going to kill me or something, and I'm not particularly afraid of that anyway. So
Not afraid of dying.
not really. No, I mean, again, it's it's an age and stage in life thing. I mean,
I know I got 10
children, so
Relaxosauruses.
there were times when
They
were little
always
where I was
have
terrified
blood,
of dying,
which
'cause if I
sucks.
died, it would have
I don't.
huge consequences. But no, I mean, at this point, I don't want to die. I'm really enjoying my life, but I've been with the same girl for 40 years, and I have 4 children who I'm extremely close to. Well, now 5, a daughter-in-law, and I love them all. I'm really close to them. I told them I love them every day.
That was an accident?
I've had a really interesting life.
What was the goal? Just linger on that.
Only
What was
2
the goal
more,
from
then I
here?
can analyze
Like,
them.
how were you thinking about it? What would
Analyze.
success be like in your head leading into it?
To bring more information
Just
to
information.
the public. Yeah, that's it. I mean, I have really strong feelings about what's happening not just in Ukraine or Russia, but around the world. I think the world.
Yeah, the way George Soros is used on the right wing is the same way that Vladimir Putin is used by the left wing as their boogeyman, right? Except it makes sense when it comes to Soros, because Soros actively meddles in United States politics, actively and openly. Any theories to do with Putin or Russia as far as interference in U.S. politics is all hypothetical and theoretical, It's all like bot farms and stuff like that. It's not based in reality. George Soros is well known for buying district attorneys. Get in the ball. Get in the ball. How are you breaking out at 40%? Alright, one more and I can analyze them. Seriously? What if you don't survive a shot? Now get in the ball. That's my main worry, is that they don't survive a single gunshot. Nothing. Mine foreman. Cheery. Glutton. Yo, this is an essential mod. Earthquake resistant. And I like that it's balanced. It doesn't have to be, you know, if you're once you're modding, you're already outside. Like, Pal World already lets you do so much as far as like Glutton. Here. You thought you could run up on me, big boy? You thought shit was sweet? Pick it up. Alright, let's fast travel out of here. Let's go see if Jet Dragon's back, because all we need is a nimble one now to get a perfect speed roll. Oh, here goes two more. Let's analyze them. Glutton and Nimble. Glutton. I think Relaxosauruses just come with Glutton, right? The same way the Cativas always have Coward.
Is resetting to the grave disadvantage of the United States. I don't think most Americans are aware of that at all. And so that's my view, and I've stated it many times because it's sincere. But my goal was to have more information brought to the West so people could make their own decisions about whether this is a good idea. I mean, I guess I reject the whole premise of the war in Ukraine from the American perspective, which is, you know, a tiny group of dumb people in Washington has decided to do this for reasons they won't really explain, and you don't have a role in it at all as an American citizen, as the person who's paying for it, whose children.
Yeah, the only thing I could see, the only justification I could see that makes any sense is if you were genuinely concerned about Russian expansionism, right? But if you've bought into the way, like I have, right, and I say bought into meaning that like I've been convinced, right, that interventionism is not in the best interest of the United States. More specifically, its citizens. Then it becomes you become non-support. You no longer want to support the United States being the policeman of the world, or for us to basically be funding and doing the lion's share of NATO. Like NATO wouldn't exist without the United States. A lot of the other countries don't do the military spending we do, so they can't. I need a nimble one. Jack be nimble. Work slave. I already have runner and swift. I just need nimble. Maybe I already have it. I hope I don't. But yeah, it's once you've resigned yourself that it's in our own best interest to have a non-interventionist policy, as well as that you're no longer concerned with NATO and, well, what is this? Artisan? All he does is harvest. Who cares? Then it becomes easier to say, like, these wars are not for me. I don't see Russia as Russians or Europeans at the end of the day. we have more in common culturally and ethnically and spiritually as like conservative United people in the United States with Russians than Ukrainians or if have you seen the way Christians are treated in Israel? It's like insanity. It's like, don't they realize they wouldn't exist without our support? I mean, they're scrappy. They're a scrappy country, right? And they've pulled off some like military miracles, like the 6 Day War, the Yom Kippur War. They've fought off people on all sides, but it was with European weaponry and obviously financial support. They were given the land after World War II by the Allies. There'd be no Israel without the United States and Europe. So it's insanity to see the way that like Westerners and Christians are treated in Israel, especially by the Orthodox community. It almost makes sense if you got the same treatment from people of the Islamic faith because of the way we've been intervening in that part of the world. It makes sense for them to harbor animosity for us. But Israel should have nothing but gratitude. And it's already known that they spy on us more than any other country, and they sort of have to, right? Because they depend on us to exist, so they have to keep their finger on the pulse and see like where support is waning, and like I could totally see them interfering with elections and stuff like that because it's part of like a existential necessity. They need our support, and therefore they need to make sure that whoever is elected also supports Israel, which is something they don't have to worry about with Trump. Trump is a huge Zionist. It's his like biggest flaw. But he gets so many other things right. Like he's right on the border. He's right on the media. He's right on the Second Amendment. My main issues are the border, the Second Amendment, and freedom of speech, right? My ideal situation is to see an Internet Bill of Rights come out. I'd like to see something done about police, get them reined in. Obviously, we don't want crime running rampant, but I don't want to see as many videos of like overreach and abuse on behalf of the police. We need to do something about unemployment, and we need to do something about how we're gonna handle the crisis of automation. Mind Foreman. Did I see Nimble too though? It was Legend, wasn't it? Legend, yep. Fuck off. It's like, isn't that fast enough?
Shut up and obey. I just reject that completely.
It's not fast enough.
I guess I'm a child of a different era. I'm a child of participatory democracy to some extent, where your opinion as a citizen is not irrelevant. And so I'm just, and I guess the level of lying about it was starting to drive me crazy. And I've said, and I will say again, I am not an expert on the region or really any region other than say Western Maine. I just don't, I'm not Russian. And, but it was obvious to me that we were being lied to in ways that were just, it was crazy, the scale of the lies. And I'll give you one example. The idea that Ukraine would inevitably win this war. Now, victory was never, as it never is, defined precisely. Nothing is ever defined precisely, which is always a tell that there's deception at the heart of the claim. But Ukraine's
give me a nimble.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm hardly a tactician or a military expert. For the fifth time, I'm not an expert on Russia or Ukraine. I just look at Wikipedia. Russia has 100 million more people than Ukraine. 100 million. It has much deeper industrial capacity, war material capacity than all of NATO combined.
Logging foreman.
For example,
my God,
Russia is turning out artillery shells, which are, significant in a ground war, at a ratio of 7 to 1.
Yeah, industrial capacity
compared
can
to
win wars
all NATO
alone.
countries combined. That's all of Europe.
What's up, dear?
Russia is producing
I'm
7
streaming.
times the artillery shells as all of Europe combined. What?
Oh, I
That's
thought it
an
was
amazing
Ukraine.
fact,
It's
and
all
it
of
turns
Europe.
out to be a really significant fact. In fact, the significant fact.
Yeah, they call the
But if you ask
155 the
your
Lord of
average person
War.
in this country, even a fairly well-informed person of good faith who's just trying to understand what's going on, who's going to win this war? Well, Ukraine's going to win. They're on the right side. And they think
No,
that
Ukraine.
because our media,
I've always
really
thought
just
there's
do
no
serve
way
the interests
Ukraine
of the
can win
US
this
government,
war.
period. They
Russia
are
has
state
the
media in that
numbers. They
sense.
have the armor.
I've told them that for over 2
They've
years.
modernized a lot
And
without us even
I was in
realizing
Hungary
it.
last summer.
Ukraine lost like 7 Leopard 8, like state-of-the-art Leopards just because they didn't know how to use them.
Like smart on a scale.
And they didn't have
Used
the
to.
combined
Yeah,
arm support to use them
And I said
correctly.
to him off camera, so is Ukraine going to win? And he looked at me like I was deranged, like or I was congenitally,
Yeah, there's no way Ukraine can win this
Deficient.
war.
Are they going to win? No. Of
If
course
Russia
they can't
goes
win.
all out, it'd
Tiny
be over in a
compared to
week,
Russia.
but it'd be a
Russia
humanitarian
has
crisis.
a wartime economy.
It would look bad
Ukraine doesn't really have an economy.
on the world stage.
Look at the populations. He was like, looked at me like I was stupid. And I said to him, I think most Americans believe that because NBC News and CNN and all the news channels.
Yeah, there's
all
no
of
way
them,
Ukraine.
all of them
I
have,
see a lot
because
of
it's framed
videos
exclusively in
too.
moral terms, and it's Churchill versus Hitler, and of course.
Yeah, I see a lot of videos on TikTok and YouTube where they're trying to like flex like what the wins, the few wins Ukraine has, or the times that where Russians fall short or their advances don't work, and celebrate them like this is like a slam dunk. And I'm just thinking like there's no way that like if Russia went all out that this war wouldn't be over in a week.
Of course, Churchill's going to prevail in the end.
You
And
okay,
it's
dear?
just so dishonest.
You just worried?
It doesn't even matter what I want
Okay.
to happen or what I think ought to happen.
I gotta go get
That's a
Gavin in like
distortion
30
of what is
minutes.
happening. And if I have any job at all, which I sort of don't actually at this point,
No,
but
I'm
if I do
on-
have a job,
I'm just
it's to
streaming.
just try to be honest. And that's a lie.
Talking to nobody.
There is a
essentially.
more nuanced discussion about what winning might look like. You're
For
right.
sure.
A nuanced discussion is not being had, but it is possible for Ukraine to quote
It's getting
unquote
fucking
win
hot, man.
with the help of the United States.
I guess that conversation needs to begin by defining terms. And the key
Yeah,
term is
if-
win. What does that mean?
Right.
Peace,
The United States
ceasefire,
hasn't won a war
who
in a
owns
long
which land.
time.
Yes.
coming to the table with, as you call the parent, the United States,
Yes.
putting leverage on the negotiation to make sure there's a
When we pulled out of Afghanistan, it was after like 15 years, and it was disastrous. We basically gave them a lot of weapons, and retreated. It was a retreat, and we didn't even and we delivered death machines to them as an accident. So there's no way you can look at the pullout of the United States from Afghanistan as like any kind of victory. I mean, I'm sure we're glad it's over, but we pulled out the wrong way. Same thing with Iraq. We destabilized Iraq, created a power vacuum, and a even worse group of people stepped in to the power vacuum. Even with the United States help, right? All we're gonna get is another Afghanistan or Iraq. There's no possible scenario where the United States gets involved in Ukraine at the level it needs to get involved in order for them to have a military victory that doesn't end. And this isn't Iraq or Afghanistan. I'm only comparing it to them because they were weaker opponents, and it still had a disastrous outcome. There's no scenario where we support the Ukraine at the level we need to support them, which is we need to provide them the Air Force. They need AWACS. They need AWACS. They need J-Stars. They need seed planes. They need our Aegis systems as close as we can get them. They need Patriot missiles. They're going to need special forces. They're going to need training. They've lost so many men. They're going to need troops to win a military victory over Russia. And then what's the goal? To bring them to the negotiating table and force a ceasefire, right? We're dealing with a nuclear-armed enemy with a clear red line. Like Russia has said over and over and over again that any military threats to their homeland will be met with nuclear deterrence. So like being in open war with Russia to support Ukraine is basically losing. You're losing the game. So all we can do is covertly support them. And when I say, I don't mean covertly, I mean support them materially. Provide weapons. And we're not even doing it like in the guise as the United States doing it. It's reported as NATO support because it has to be. Because it sort of... Russia going into Ukraine is not a threat to the United States in any way. Not logistically, not. If anything, it's more of a threat to the European countries, just because like they're a lot closer. So if anyone has a reason to want to support the Ukrainian cause, it should be the European NATO countries. And you don't hear them talking the same way we're talking about potentially getting into a conflict with Russia or escalating it. Escalating the support. It's only the United States, right? And this is crazy at its face. This is a no-win situation.
Fairness.
Amen. Well, of course, and I should just restate this. I am not emotionally involved in this. I'm American in every sense, and my only interest is in America. I'm not leaving, ever. And so I'm looking at this purely from our perspective, what's good for us. But also as a human being, as a Christian, I mean, I hate war, and anybody who doesn't
Amen,
hate
brother.
war, shouldn't have power, in my opinion. So I agree with that definition vehemently. A victory is like not killing an entire generation of your population. It's not being completely destroyed to be eaten up by BlackRock or whatever comes next for them. So
yeah, this is
we were
all
close to that a year and a half ago, and the Biden administration dispatched Boris Johnson, briefly.
I also think a lot of the things that we do in this country are all money laundering schemes. Like I'm almost convinced that NASA is a money laundering mechanism. We give them billions of dollars and they give us bad Photoshop and crappy CGI. And I'm not saying it's flat or that space isn't real. I'm just saying that like they definitely faked some stuff. Specifically, it's hard to say, right? Like if you watch A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, you'll see where they've intentionally made some misleading photographs to just, I mean, you can say it was like just in case the mission failed, they faked that they were in deep space and took pictures out of a small porthole and blocked out all the windows. That way, just in case the mission failed, they could still claim some sort of victory. But once you start faking anything, it calls everything into question. And then there's some videos from the ISS where you can clearly see like that there are people on like harnesses. I don't know if they're pretending to be in the space station when they're really not. I don't know what's going on, right? But I think the war in Ukraine, I bet there's a lot of it that has to do with like war profiteering on the part of private military corporations and arms dealers, and the United States doesn't give anyone anything. It's all loaned, and it's all, and the money for the war is probably coming from the World Bank and the IMF, and it's all war profiteering. So in a large part, I don't even think the moral argument is legitimate on their part. Like there might be some people who legitimately think that it's our duty to defend democracy, like anywhere in the world. But that's like terribly naive. See, Swift comes up easier than Nimble. That's like the third Swift one I've seen. I see Swift way more than Nimble.
Prime Minister of the UK to stop it and to say to Zelensky, who I feel sorry for, by the way, because he's caught between these forces that are bigger than he is, to say, no, you cannot come to any terms with Russia. And the result of that has not been a Ukrainian victory. It's just been more dead Ukrainians and a lot of profit for the West. It's a moral crime, in my opinion. And I tried to ask Boris Johnson about it, because why wouldn't I? After he denounced me as a tool of the Kremlin or something. And he demanded $1 million to talk to me.
Wow.
And this just happened last week. And by the way, in writing too. I'm not.
What a clown!
I'm not
Just
making
for
this
the
up.
record, you demanded $1 million from me to talk to me today.
And you paid. No, I'm of course kidding. But and I said to his guy, I said, I just interviewed Putin, who was widely recognized as a bad guy, and he did it for free. He didn't demand $1 million. He wasn't in this for profit. Like, are you telling me that Boris Johnson is sleazier than Vladimir Putin? And of course, that is the message. And so
we have the
these are
most corrupt
really
politicians in the
not just about Boris
world.
Johnson being a sad,
Well, he's European,
rapacious
but
fraud, which he is, obviously. But it's about like the future of the West and the future of Ukraine, this country that purportedly we care so much about. All these people are dying, and like, what is the end game?
yeah, this is taking
It's also
forever.
deranged that I didn't imagine and don't imagine that I could like add anything very
Nimble,
meaningful to the conversation.
Jack be
Because I'm
nimble.
not a genius, okay? But I felt like I could, at the very least, puncture some of the lies, and that's an inherent good.
I'm getting good at flying this
after
dragon,
you
though.
said that he wasn't fully satisfied because you weren't aggressive enough. You didn't ask sharp enough questions.
Uh-huh.
First of all, what do you think about him saying that?
I don't even understand it. I guess it does seem like the one Putin statement that Western media take at face value. Everything else Putin says is a lie, except his criticism of me, which is true. But I mean, I have no idea what he meant by that. I can only tell you what my goal was, as I've suggested.
That's unfortunate that Putin said
to make
that,
it
because
about
it
me.
just
I
lends
watched him. He hasn't
legitimacy
done it
to
in any interviews of any
the
kind
Russian
for
lapdog
years.
argument.
But the last interview he did with an English-speaking reporter, Western media reporter, was like many of the other interviews he'd done with Western media reporters. Mike Wallace's son did an interview with him that was of the same variety, and it was all about him. You know, I'm a good person, you're a bad person. And I just feel like that's the most tiresome, fruitless kind of interview. It's not about me. I don't think I'm an especially good person. I've definitely never claimed to be. But people can make their own judgments. And again, the only judgments that I care about are my wife and children and God. So
Swift again.
I'm just not interested in proving
I would have
I'm a
been
good
psyched
person.
if I didn't already have
And
it.
I just want to hear from him. And I had a lot of, I mean, you should see, I almost never write questions down, but I did in this case because I had I had 3 years to think about it as I was trying to book the interview, which I did myself. But it was all about internal Russian politics and Navalny, and I had a lot of, I thought, really good questions.
If I can't get nimble,
And then at the
what
last
is
second,
the
and you make
fourth
these decisions,
trait
as
that
you
I
know, since you
want?
interview people a lot.
What does
Often
Divine
you make them on
Dragon
the fly.
do?
And I thought, no, I want to talk about the things that haven't been talked about and that I think matter in a world historic sense. And the number one among those, of course, is
That's
the
good, I
war
guess.
and what it means for the world. And so I stuck to that. I mean, I could answer. I did ask about Gershkovich, who I felt sorry for, and I wanted Putin to release him to me, and I was offended that he didn't. I thought his rationale was absurd. Well, we want to trade him for someone. I said, well, doesn't that make him a hostage? You know, which of course it does. But other than that, I really wanted to keep it to the things that I think matter most. You know,
That
people
was a
can judge
G
whether I
move
did
to
a good
ask
job
for
or not,
that
but
POW.
that was my decision.
In the moment, what was your gut? Did you want to ask some tough questions as follow-ups on certain topics?
I don't know what it would mean to ask a tough question.
Clarifying questions, I suppose they would.
I guess. I just wanted him to talk. You know, I just wanted to hear his perspective. Again, I've probably asked more asshole questions than like any living American. You know, I'm, as has been noted correctly, I'm a dick by my nature. And
Haha, nice.
so I just feel at this stage of my life, I didn't need to prove that I could, like, Vladimir Putin, answer the question.
Sure,
It's
for sure.
You know, I think if I had been, 34 instead of 54, I definitely would have done that, because I would have thought this is really about me and I need to prove myself. And also, no, I just, there's a war going on that is wrecking the U.S. economy in a way
Yep.
at a scale people do not understand. The U.S. dollar is going away. That was, of course, inevitable ultimately because everything does,
Yeah.
including currencies. But that process of death has been accelerated
yes.
exponentially by the
Yep.
behavior of the Biden administration and the U.S. Congress, particularly the sanctions. And people don't understand what the ramifications of that are. The ramifications are poverty in the United States, okay?
Yep.
So I just wanted to get to that because I'm coming at this from not a global perspective. I'm coming at it from an American perspective.
So you mentioned Navalny.
Mm-hmm.
After you left, Navalny died in prison.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on, just at a high level first, about his death?
Well, it's awful. I mean, imagine dying in prison. You know, I've thought about it a lot. I've known a lot of people in prison, a lot, including some very good friends of mine. So I felt instantly sad about it. From a geopolitical perspective, I don't know any more than that. And I laugh at and sort of resent, but mostly find amusing, the claims by American politicians who really are the dumbest politicians in the world, actually. You know, this happened and here's what it means. And it's like, actually, as a factual matter, we don't know what happened. We don't know what happened. We have no freaking idea what happened. We can say, and I did say, and I will say again, I don't think you should put opposition figures in prison. I really don't. I don't. Period. It happens a lot around the world. It happens in this country, as you know, and I'm against all of it. But do we know how he died? The short answer, no, we don't. Now, if I had to guess, I would say killing Navalny during the Munich Security Conference in the middle of a debate over $60 billion in Ukraine funding? Maybe the Russians are dumb. I didn't get that vibe at all. You know, I don't see it, but maybe they killed him. I mean, they certainly put him in prison, which I'm against. But here's what I do know is that we don't know. And so when Chuck Schumer stands up and Rawr! Joe Biden reads some card in front of him with lines about Navalny, it's like, I'm allowed to laugh at that because it's absurd. You don't know.
There's a lot of interesting ideas about
Come on,
if he
Jack,
was
be
killed,
nimble.
who killed him.
Yeah.
Because it could be Putin. It could be somebody in Russia who's not Putin.
Yeah.
It could be Ukrainians, because it would benefit the war.
They killed Dugin's daughter in Moscow. So, yeah, it's possible.
And it could be, I mean, the
Where
United
you
States
is?
could also be involved.
I don't think we kill people in other
Maso
countries
keys.
to affect election outcomes. Oh, wait.
What's
no, we do
cracking,
it a
baby?
lot and have for 80 years, and it's shameful. I can say that as an American because it's my money.
You want to
and
go with
my
me to
name.
get Gavin later?
Yeah, I'm really offended by that. And
got
I never
20
thought that was
minutes to get
true.
this
And I
nimble.
spent, again, I'm much older than you, and so I spent my worldview was defined by the Cold War. And very much in the house I lived in Georgetown, in Washington, D.C., you know, that's what we talked
If
about.
it's not
And,
possible,
yeah,
then
and
what
the
do
left
I
at the
want?
time, you know, I don't know, the wacko MIT professor who
Is
I never had any
ferocious
respect
better
for,
than Divine
who
Dragon?
interviewed, etc. Like the hard left was always saying, "Oh, the United States government is interfering in other elections," and I just dismissed that completely out of hand as stupid
election
and actually a
interference
slander
is
against our
like-
country. But it turned out to all be true, or substantially true anyway.
Par
And
for
that's
the
been a real
course.
shock for me in middle age to understand that. But anyway, as to Navalny, look, I don't know, but we should always proceed on the basis of what we do know, which is to say on the basis of truth, knowable truth. And if you have an entire policy-making apparatus that is making the biggest decisions on the face of the planet on the basis of things that are bullshit or
Musclehead.
lies, you're going to get bad outcomes every time. And that's why we are where we are.
Does it bother you that basically the most famous opposition figure in Russia is sitting in prison?
Well, of course it does. Of course it bothers me. I mean, it bothered me when I got there. It bothers
Same
me
thing in the
now.
United
It was sad when he
States.
died. Yeah, I mean,
Assange.
that's one of the measures of, it's one of the basic measures of political freedom. Are you imprisoning people who oppose you?
Yeah, they're trying to do it to
Are you
Trump.
imprisoning people who pose a physical risk to you? I mean, there's some subjective decision-making involved in these things. However, big picture, yeah. Do you have opposition leaders in jail? It's not a politically free society, and Russia isn't, obviously.
Makes
And
no
as I
claim to
said,
be.
A friend of mine from childhood.
We claim
was
to be,
American,
but aren't.
Actually, he's a wonderful person. Lives in Russia with his Moscow with his Russian wife, and I had dinner with him.
Abnormal.
He's a very balanced guy, totally non-political person, and speaks Russian and loves his many Russian children and loves the culture. And there's a lot to love. The culture that produced Tolstoy. You know, it's not a gas station with a nuclear
Dostoevsky.
weapon story. Only a moron would say that. It's a very deep culture. I don't fully understand it, of course, but I admire it.
Capacitor.
Who wouldn't? But I asked him, like, what's it like living here? And he goes, it's great. Moscow is a great city, indisputably. He said, you don't want to get involved in Russian politics. And I said, what? He said, well, you could get hurt. You could wind up like Navalny if you did. But also it's just too complicated. You know, the Russian mind is not exactly the same. It's a Western, it's a European city. But it's not quite European. And the way they think is very, very complex. Very complex. It's too complicated. Just don't get involved. And I would just say two things. One, I'm not sure. I mean, like, I don't know. But my strong sense is that Navalny's death, whoever did it, probably didn't have a lot to do with the coming election in Russia. My sense from talking to Putin and the people around him is they're not really focused on that. I mean, in fact, I asked one of his top advisors,
yeah, Putin
when's
knows
the election?
when the next
She looked at me
election.
completely confused. She didn't know the date of the election. Okay. She's like, March? Okay. And I asked a bunch of other people.
I think
just in Moscow,
in general,
who's Putin running against? Like nobody knew.
Russia loves Putin. Oh, my headphones just died. Oh, what do I do? What do I do without headphones? I can use one of these. One of these works, the other one doesn't. One of them worked a second ago. Where is settings at? Bluetooth. Add device. Shit, it was working a second ago. Trying to pair a new Bluetooth headset because this one died. I'm having technical issues. I might just stop it for now and let that charge. And then be back. Well, after I pick my son up from school. Let's fast travel home. We'll try this one more time. But I can't play the interview because it'll come through the microphone and sound like shit. I'm right on top of yo ass. Alright, that's last time. I'm gonna go home and we'll check back in a few.